Dwa? O, jej. Mocne. Obecny, obecny. Jesteśmy. Kochani, zaczynamy. Dzień dobry.
Okay, we're on.
Czujecie się super,
I hope that you feel all right and you have lots of energy to survive this film spring day. Before I announce Mariusz, two words of advertising. There's a lot of happening today in the afternoon at 5:30. The one and only Szymon Majewski will be talking about promotion. Before that, at 3:30, about an international career of actors, and it will be discussed by Irena Rozbicka. And at 2 p.m. we have a meeting with the actress Agata Buzek, to which we are heartily invited. And now, without further ado, about international corporations, about opportunities and threats. We will hear from producer of Magnus von Horn and Małgorzata Szumowska.
Zapraszamy.
Mariusz Włodarski. Thank you. That's a very, very radio-like voice. My name is Mariusz Włodarski. I am a film producer. I made one film of Małgosia Szumowska and many more films films I made before, from the very start when I came up. I didn't come up with this idea maybe, but I was working in Opus Film, and they were specializing in co-productions, and these co-productions worked very naturally. And I felt that at the phase when I was starting with my own production company, these co-productions, well, the companies which dealt with film co-productions, there were very few of them. So if we were going somewhere abroad, we met mostly with Ewa Puszczyńska with Apple and several other entities, and that was a moment when we could differentiate. And this is the first thing that that's worth remembering. I don't know what Krzysztof said yesterday, but it's worth to have an idea for a business which is you could differentiate against the others, not to repeat the same schemes, because people start to specialize in certain things. It doesn't mean that there's only one company that has to be what does international co-productions, but if you have like dozens of them, and if you look, for example, if you look at the website of the Polish Film Institute, how many companies get support for co-production structures, you will see that what is the number of co-production specializing companies in Poland. Here, majority of my movies, regardless of the language, I made them in co-productions, apart from the movie 21 Times New York of Piotr, which was shot in New York, and we made it only for Polish money. Whenever I'm asked to tell about co-production and what it is, how to tackle it, what are the pros and cons of co-production, I always say I really make co-production, but it's a pity I don't do 100% Polish movies. And there is a certain paradox in that when you are planning the structure of financing of your movie based on your own film, it's much easier in the Polish relations. It's much easier to control public financing. It's much easier to control. It's much easier to deal with the whole production process. In the situation of co-production, it's much more difficult. It's much slower, but it's much more interesting at the same time. And I do have a feeling that I would like to start with what co-production is. What does it mean? Do you really know? Would you be able to give me the definition of co-production? I will be testing your knowledge. I don't know at which stage you are. I don't know if these are your first projects. Have you graduated from production schools? Do you know anything a bit more? Yes. Yes, it is. It can be an international entity or Polish entity. Co-production can also be done based on one country. So if, let's say, Canal Plus is co-producing with Mazowiak, with Łódź Film Commission, and these are also co-production agreements. However, they fall under the legal register, the legal system of Poland, of the Republic of Poland. However, if we're making an international co-production, it's a cooperation with at least one entity on an international stage, which is such entity is able to give us certain co-production status. I do have an impression that these co-producers, there can be plenty of those co-producers. It's not that we can do co-production between Poland and Ireland, or Poland, Sweden, and Poland and Germany, but we can also make co-productions as like with every European country. But the question remains: does it make sense? So the more entities you have in co-production, the more difficult it is, because the number of stakeholders you have to come to agreements with, the number of interests, is a really considerable one. So what does co-production give you, and what does it take away from you? It is one of the things. Co-production takes away a certain percentage participation in the share of the film. If you co-production takes away some of the income of you, but what does it give you in return? Would you have it without co-production? Maybe. Yes, thank you. Yes, maybe there will be a place for distribution. Maybe with co-producers it would be easier. Well, reversing the situation, me, as if I co-produce a movie and I'm a minority co-producer, then I do have certain relations with distributors on the Polish scene, and it's easier for me to approach a distributor. It doesn't mean that the distributor does not have any relations. How many films in the cinema are presented over a year which have nothing to do with Polish co-production? Plenty of them, and they are still presented in the cinema. So there are certain distribution bases. It's easier because if in order to establish certain relation, it's not something that is like the essence of it, unless there is financing in it. In the basic layer of co-production, co-production is about financing. Yesterday you had a workshop. You had a chance that one of the films that I co-produced, The Wolf, and tomorrow and the day after that you will be able to see that I produced or Sweat. It's called Sweat. The difference between production and co-production is big. The one is minority, the other one is majority. Can you say what is the difference between one and the other? The difference can be distributed into two different domains. So one is financial control, how much, i.e., how much on that side of my side of the bargain I put, how much I add in the financing, and what is the percentage of the financing plan is on my part, and the other part is the artistic part. You can imagine a structure in which I am a majority producer, but I do not have a majority financing, because, for example, I'm making a film in another country, and the spend in that country is much higher, but at the same time I have a place to retain my creative artistic majority. No, it's not the same. Delegation consists in that, it depends on what you specialize in. You can delegate somebody if they apply to your image. You can delegate someone to sign a contract with the agent, because you know that this person is more experienced in that sense. I will present it to you, maybe. It's going to be easier, maybe. When it comes to what is given, what is taken away, paradoxically, I always represent the idea of co-production as a cake, or the idea of production as a cake. So you can imagine that this cake can be divided into several pieces. You can eat it all yourself. You can share it with people around. And it depends on you which part you will give away as a co-production structure. But it all depends. You cannot give like one slice. You would have, let's say, 1%, because this will not be accepted by the law. Because when it comes to co-production, we all function under something which is called the European Convention on Co-production, or under bilateral agreements with a given country. So let's say we have a contract with Canada or New Zealand, and we can realize co-productions with them. What does it give us? Is that our government, our law, our Polish Film Institute, our distributor, our officials have to see it as a local film, as a Polish film. You can always use your money and put it into any co-production. It doesn't have to be under a convention, but it will not give you this advantage that this film legally will be perceived as the Polish movie. And now this rule of cooperation in co-production is divided in this percentage of the cake. So if we had two parties co-production according to the old convention, and unfortunately in many countries it's still in force, it's division 20% to 80%. What does that mean? That means that the majority stakeholder cannot add in the structure of financing of a given film more than 80% of their financing. And the minority partner cannot add more than 20. So in the old convention, this is a bilateral arrangement. If we think about the new convention that entered into force several years ago, and it was not ratified by every European country, this has changed the structure that into no less than 5% in a trilateral, and not less than 10 in the two bilateral contracts. But not. This is an improvement. But so we as Poland, we ratified it, but not every country ratified it. And France, for example, did not. Or Germany. So you have to co-produce them according to the old rules of the convention, or according to the bilateral agreements we have with France, but we do not with Germany. What does that mean in practice? I, as a producer, I'm searching for partners around Europe and around the world, partners which will be able, in their part, to finance this production in such a scope that it will fill this requirement of percentage financing. And this is the basic thing that you said, in percentage. Well, this is what we get. What does it take away? What the co-producers would take as for his co-production? What are the possible divisions here? Will you try? I think that this is fluid in this sense that who gets what, the territory is quite often the important thing. Yes, this is all fluid. It all depends on how we agree to cooperate. But there are rules with which you have to start for them to make sense. When you approach anybody, you have to know what you have to offer, what you can offer. Depending on the reaction, something will omit you. Of course, it is accepted right now that if it's Polish-Irish co-production or Polish-Spanish, every co-producer in this cake takes his own country. So what does it mean to take his own country? Because it's a mental shortcut, and I know that, but I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Na razie jesteśmy na etapie prawnym.
We are in the legal territory right now. We'll get into the legal territory.
Na razie wchodzimy w strukturę w ogóle jakby całej koprodukcji, w ogóle jakby od tego, co ona musi mieć,
We have to get into the structure to know. We have to know what has to happen so that we can sign this contract.
Jeżeli ja mówię w ogóle
If I'm saying that I'm taking my own country, it means that I'm individually in a given country. Of course, I can have local co-producers, but I'm responsible for decisions of any sort of cooperation, any sort of distribution, promotion, any sort of sales, only in the area of my part of the cake. And in that part, the co-producer does not participate.
I to samo działa w drugą stronę.
And the same works the other way around.
Czyli w ogóle jakby, jeżeli ja na przykład koprodukuję z Irlandią,
So if I co-produce with Ireland, the Irish have Ireland,
i Polska ma Polskę,
and the Polish have Poland, and I do not draw profits from those countries. I do not. Like in the other from the other country, of course, but I can exchange which country, and usually this is the initiating country, which country starts the distribution in the given country. So if I was the co-producer, I would fight for the Polish premiere to be the first, and if the co-producer was the Irish, and she will be fighting for this. Of course, there are always exceptions. If we might want, let's say they have the festival in Cork, which is in June, and we want to introduce the film right after that, and we have Gdynia, and we want to have the film premiering right after that. And these are the negotiations that you have to carry out with your partners. The website that I wanted to open to is the Euroimage website, where you can find a lot of information about the regulations related to the convention and to things which are important. And when it comes to this convention, it's not only that you can download it and to see which rules are functioning there in order to make such co-production. You can look at this, which countries, for example, ratified a given convention in... to what extent this is important, especially for the people who are just starting out? That's... Sorry, I can't hear the question. Have you ever had a situation that your partner in Ireland said that Poland has 40 million people, you have a bigger distribution market, we have smaller distribution market, can we enter in some way, participate in the profits in your country? Did you have any talks like that? How do you get out of this? And continuing this, the idea of these divisions, because let's say you co-produce with Spain. People speak Spanish. There are many more Spanish speakers than Polish speakers. How do you negotiate? Now this is all the question of a convention and an agreement. It's good, Marta, that you ask about that. As a rule, the idea is that every country holds to their own country is an unwritten element of co-production life, but it does not have to be like that. So I can, for example, exchange my shares, and I can, let's say, agree that this cake that is being divided, we will divide it according to the financial input everywhere. So I do not need to take out my own country to enter into co-production. So as a rule, if we would go much further, we would go from a document which is called the recoupment plan, the plan of financial settlement of the profits from distribution. This will be distributed my own territory, so Poland, my recoupment, Ireland, let's say, let's use that example, and their recoupment, and the so-called raw, the rest of the world. And the rest of the world, in the rest of the world, you participate in place where you have a percentage share of financing of the country, and in your own country in 100%, but the raw can be in full. So we do not have to make a division between Poland and Ireland. It's all a matter of contractual arrangements. So it all depends on the strength on your financing and the necessity of your financing for the development of the film. So you have to know your muscle if you're to know if you're able to fight for something. If you collaborate with France, France will want to have the Francophonie, the islands. This is their approach. If you go to Germany, quite often they would want to have Switzerland and Austria. So places which function where they distribute or where their TV license, the broadcasting license, where they can sell it, where it still works, and they do not want to limit their profits because of the territory. We are in such a situation in which we are left alone, and the only institution that was giving us a chance to negotiate more than only Poland was HBO, which withdrew from Poland. So they were buying a license for the countries of Central Europe. That does not mean that you cannot negotiate this. The question is, does it make sense? Usually, over our co-production domain, we have the sales producer. His approach is much closer than ours. So I know, if I know producers in Latvia, in Czech Republic, yes, I might know somebody, but I have no relations with them. And so, for example, with one of the films I was producing, I had a situation that I reserved for myself, that Germans have Switzerland and Austria, and I have Czech Republic and Slovakia, and I did nothing with them. Because I have no access, and I gave it to the sales agent. The upside is that if you have any income there, it goes to me. However, I don't know if Krzysztof mentioned that yesterday, but in Poland, regardless of what you produce in Poland, you always have a chance in the Polish language, in the Polish content, you always have a chance for distribution that can surprise you. So nobody planned, for example, that Cold War, that's my favorite example, will be a huge hit over 1 million viewers. I don't think that anybody would. It was not in the plan. Maybe in the hope somewhere. Yes, always. I mean, I always hope that my films will be a huge blockbuster. And in such a situation, this is how it works. Abroad, those films are sold as art house in the majority of cases. So the viewer which is interested in international cinema, in other languages, is a viewer who normally is a niche viewer, a niche audience, 5-10% of the population. So the distribution which is offered by MG, because like moving forward, on every territory you have a certain share of for producers. So MG calculates that very well. They know MG usually calculate very well, and they know that the 1% of the sales will cover the losses. I mean, the cost of purchase. Then they have the P&A, and they always have more titles than yours, and they always share it between the titles. So in reality, as a rule, there is no much international revenue from the projects unless it's some huge success like Oscar. And I think if Leszek, who co-produced that film with France, would got such incomes, I think the Cold War or IDA, the things which are extremely well perceived, they have a high recognition and win festivals, they have a chance for that. The exceptions are films in Polish language for Polish people, where we have England, like we have the Polish minority, England, Norway, United States, not anymore, but where the Polish diaspora work is still there. Like the commercial titles in Poland are also keenly watched there, but because we have a huge piracy in Poland, they quite often watched before any distributor buys it and puts in on distribution network there. I'll repeat that question, maybe.
Działa mikrofon, ja będę powtarzał w ogóle to pytanie. Chodzi o dubbing.
It's a question about dubbing. The microphone doesn't work. The question relates on whether if the Polish films in Germany they would have a chance for bigger viewership. To be quite honest with you, I don't know. But I think there is a reason why they are not being dubbed. So I always assume that in a given territory, just like when I'm entering a co-production arrangement, I believe that the co-producer knows his market. If somebody's taking Polish film for distribution there, they know their market. So it's quite possible that the Polish film will not be watched there in such a way for it to pay to make a dubbing, to pay that money to get the actors and to create the dubbing. So it is quite possible that the distributor who buys the Polish title for example, for the territory of Germany, they will know that it will be watched only by the Polish people who live there, and they put those subtitles just for some random German who would want to watch this. But their target are the people who speak Polish, and that's my intuition. However, this is not my market. I do not know. For example, I believe that if in Poland, if I transpose this into our market, if in Poland you use dubbing in foreign movies, we would not watch them, because our tradition is so focused on the lector who's like boring us to tears throughout this all, or subtitles. Then yes, but I mean, for the kids, there's no chance that the film would be different, and they use. But so if you ask children from Poland or France, for them Spider-Man to a certain level, he's a national hero, or Hulk or everybody else, because the films are dubbed, because there is a moment when you really get into this when you're 12 or 14 years old, and you're traumatized when it occurs that Spider-Man is from the United States. So these are the things which are nuanced. But also, well, I strayed a bit from distribution. I want to come back to co-productions. In this division that we're in right now, we're creating the financing plans. Can we go to the laptop, please? In this division, in cooperation with our partner, we're looking for guaranteeing the budget. I will show you two plans. One of them would be the wolf, and the other one would be wolf. This was the plan. It was not execution. I did not manage to put execution in. I did not find my execution file. But this sort of plays its role in Polish total. We have 64% on my side, 14% is France, 21 is Sweden. When it goes to this structure of division, the rule is that I cannot have more than 80% again, but the smallest partner cannot have less than 10. In the new convention, 5% and 10%. So there's much more flexibility. In the old one, this is what it looks like. In the assumption, Polish have Poland, the French have France, and the Swedes have Sweden. But in Scandinavia, due to their distribution in Scandinavia, the Sweden would like to want the whole Scandinavia on their side. So this structure makes you to see where I draw the input, where I'm looking for partners, when I'm looking for the financing for my project, where my partners are looking for this. So in every country, it's different. I will not be able to give you every example. For example, in France, in order to apply, you have to have MG from the distributor. In Sweden, you have to at least a broadcaster's license. So you have to have the promise of pre-buy agreement. In each of those countries, you have to have some artistic structure guaranteed. Some of the funds, but the same as in Poland. If you look at the minority program of the Polish Film Institute, you will see that in order to be able to apply and qualify to get a grant, we need certain artistic elements. The DOP, the editor, the scriptwriter in the first variant, or in the second variant, costumes, makeup, sound, and you have like 3 people. This is how every country works to get the so-called state funding. Where's the catch here? Because that seems to be very simple. So I can come up with this structure where I will have 10 million, 5 million of the budget, and then I will go around these countries and I will create this financing plan. I will get everything. I know it's pretty difficult to combine, but there is a break there. The European Union, also Poland, follows that rule, limits you from the point of view of public funding. Do you know what is the limit of the public funding for such financing? You're closer. You're wrong. Anyone else? 50. That's the main rule. No, 50. 50 is the limit of the public funding. For difficult movies, 90. This is very complicated because there are plenty of individual rules, and you cannot mix up the limit from one institution with the total public funding limit, because the public funding limit includes every public institution, like a regional fund or Polish Film Institute or a Swedish Film Institute, CNC. No, it does not. And Euroimage is not included. Thanks God. So if you have a financing structure, like 50% financing structure, here I have a difficult movie. The grant is not bigger than 2 million at the end of the day, or 2.5 million when I applied. So you can afford that. And then such structure can be organized. When you fail, you have to get to the 50% rule, apply the 50% rule. So we in Poland, in our Polish register, we apply for 50% of the budget, applying to one public institution. So if we're lucky, this public institution will give us 50% of the budget, and that unfortunately closes the possibility for any co-production financed from public sources. So every country is different. We in Poland qualify tax incentive as public source. Not every country functions like that. Not every country qualifies regional funds from a given country as public funding, and you have to check in everyone individually, and with every partner we have to, whenever you enter a relation, you have to get into their know-how and their consciousness to be able to see how much money we still need. And the tricky part in all this is, when we apply to the Film Institute, when you come with your first project, you have to, at least on paper, show that you're ready, show readiness to certain financing structure, whether it's a local co-production or your own input, or it's pre-sales to some sort of platform, or it's a international co-production. You have to show it. So the plan, as you can see here, is a certain assumption. This is my plan for the financing. It's not that I know that it will work like that. In this assumption, I have to keep to those rules that are there. So only when I know the amount of support from the institute, I can change that plan, or I can adapt that plan.
w sytuacjach w ogóle, w których wy zaczynacie, jeżeli
In the situations when
jesteście debiutującymi
start out, because if you're debuting with like beginning producers, usually you will be working with the beginning directors.
to znaczy, że w ogóle jesteście w dużo łatwiejszej
That means your situation is much easier and your limit is up to 90%.
I dla debiutu,
And for the debut, because when you where everybody wants to find a new Haneke, a new Szumowska, a new Smoczyńska,
to ten świat jest bardziej otwarty.
and this world is much more
Daje
open,
nam wiele
and it gives us a possibility
żeby móc wyjść
of
w ogóle
being able to go out and find partners. And now let me move to the key element, which is the selection of co-production partners.
A pokażę wam wilka.
I will show you the wolf. So the financing structure that you showed us was submitted to PISF. It was already in that form, so you had like the letters of intent from individual countries, and they also had letters of intent from the distributors, etc. Or at this stage, it was sufficient to have that declaration.
Zasady w ogóle się zmieniają w instytucie regularnie. Więc jakby
The rules change in the institute on a regular basis. So when we were applying for this film, it was enough to have letters of intent. Right now, you have to have the confirmation that the partner has money. So they do have to have those elements collected. They doesn't have to have it all. Then he can declare their own input and then find financiers. Where do you sort of sign a deal memo? No, it can be a letter of intent. For the Polish Film Institute Council, it's more important, I think, that you have the bank's opinion. You do not have a deal memo. You have to have a confirmation that this financing is there somewhere. Very quickly, what do we consider to be the debut? Oh, the act of cinematography regulates that. So, if somebody had a debut, a director had a debut in Germany, and it was her diploma film, yes. If it's a feature film, then yes. But you always have the limit of every film can be difficult. Let's say you made 8 movies, it can be difficult, but you have to give grants to it. You have to the second film is qualified as difficult. It does not mean that debut has to be a difficult film. You can go into debut and financing as a well, it doesn't make sense. It's called difficult. So what does it mean that the second film is easy? No production is easy. But the non-difficult one, let's call it for like this for want of better word. The first and the second one can be qualified without a big reasoning as a difficult film. The money from the Euro images are you have to return them. No, they are not conditionally returnable. You have to return them after a certain percentage, because here you can see that we have 3 countries that drew from that fund, and we made a film, and we're at the end. We got return on investment to a certain extent. How is that divided? Which country will say, okay, we return the money, and let's say Switzerland says they don't want to. Okay, it's a complicated structure, this Euro Image fund, but I will try to describe that to a certain extent, because I think you're touching upon something, but you don't know how to grasp it. Euro Image is a fund which is an award for making a European co-production structure. You can apply for it only if at minimum in one of the other country you collected 50% of the financing that you have in the plan of the financing for a given country. Do you understand what I mean? So if for me, in order to qualify to apply for Euro Image, I'm sorry, can you just put it on this, leave it on the screen?
Okej, no to niech będzie niebieskie, ja będę dotykał, dobra? Nie, włączony jest z powrotem.
In my country, I have to have 50% of financing, ideally from public funds, because that gives you much more credibility. The partner from France has to have this at least at 50%, and from Sweden too. Then the delegated producer, regardless of who it is, but it is assumed the one who has the majority stake applies for Euroimage, and we supplied that, and we didn't get the financing for Switch. So this is only a plan, but you apply, and later this is divided into, if you look at the total amount in Euromesh, 46, 20, 100, over 210,000. So out of this structure, Euroimage allows you to apply for no more than 17% of the whole budget. And such percentage as you achieve of that whole amount, not distributed among the co-producers, you return out of every penny that you earn. But it's not conditional. There is no condition there. They're just co-producer. But now it has changed, because we're talking 2018, but like right now it's divided. For financing up to 150, you get it as soft money. So it's yours, and that's it. Over 200,000, you have to start to give back the donation, but you always return it in the same percentage. But regardless of this, of the setup here and how much of we combine all that and take this whole budget, and that amount, each one of us, every co-producer has to give back to the level of saturation of the amount that is the full amount, which never happens. It's not a sort of a loan. It's not an obligation that you have to give it back. No, you can give it back when you have profits. If you do not have profits, then goodbye. The difference is only that the Polish Institute obliges you to 72 months. For so many times, starting from the beginning of the distribution, from the distribution year, you have to send reports to the institute informing that this project was profitable or not profitable, and then whether you're giving back the donation, because our donation is also qualified. It's also and after that it expires. So there are like 5 or 7. In many, it was different in different years. It's always defined in the contract. You describe the number of months from that day, and then the resources from Euromatch. One country applies for all. Yes. No. One country applies in the name of the whole co-production structure, and then it's being divided. In case of Wilk, the wolf, we got that money from Euroimage, and it entered our financing structure. And here you can see that, we barely got 2038. What Euroimage gave us. Our Euroimage share is higher because Euroimage allowed me to even out. So we got 300,000, and we can distribute it as we wish, not to, however, without exceeding 50%. So we could have 150 in every country, and this allows us later to even out this percentage. Do you understand what I mean? No? Again, the percentage of distribution of Euroimage does not depend on the share of national piece of cake in the cake. I know that it's not logical, but it is so. The rule is that we cannot give back more than half, but the rest can be distributed. So I have 10%, let's say, in the co-production structure, but I can have 50% out of or 49 out of Euroimage. And then you need to close this limit here. So according to the convention, you have to get at the level of 20% of the old convention to get qualified as a production under the convention.
Nie.
No,
Pewnie gdzieś jakąś
I would need to have some.
no, jakiś whiteboard.
Would need to have some whiteboard to draw it out for you then.
To może wytłumacz
So
od początku.
I will try to explain that from the beginning. Ireland has 80%, I have 20%. The budget, to make it easy, I will let's say it's 5 million euros. So Ireland has 4 million and I have 1 million euro. Out of the Polish Film Institute, 1 million euro, I get only 100,000. So in order to enter the co-production for convention, I need 900,000 from somewhere. No, to have 20%. To have 20%. So in order to get to the 20%, all right, I pre-sell it to Netflix. I have 400,000 together. Then I have a tax incentive. I have another money. And then let's say I get to the level of 700,000 and I can't find anyone anymore. We apply to Euroimage. The maximum we can get from Euroimage is 450,000. We receive that 450. And out of 450, even though I'm only 20% shareholder in the whole cake, I take 225, which means I take half, and that does not. That means I miss only 75,000, and then I put in my own share, and I'm in the structure. You know, Mariusz, the biggest controversy is evoked by the fact that we're working for free. That quite often our production fee is in kind. And in this structure it was shown that overheads are your fees. I understand, it was an in kind. Polish Film Institute obliges you to have your own investment, so you do have to have 5% of local financing. So it all depends on the company that you operate in, and sometimes you have nowhere to draw the money from. So in a given turn of the year, you have revenue and you can invest that. If you don't, tough luck. And then the producer's fee and participation is necessary to make that film. What can I tell you? Five % is calculated always from the amount of the institute. Poland paid 4 million, let's say here. Yes, this is the plan. So that's not how it worked out. I couldn't find the realized one. But the film costs 10. So 5% was supposed to. What did we take it? Well, you usually calculated that if you were a majority producer, it was calculated from a general budget. Now it's calculated on the Polish side, and in some cases it's all calculated from the grant received from the institute. So institute really made it easier for us with the more flexible rules. However, these might be, you know, I was functioning that this is, for me, this is clear. But maybe I'm speaking too fast, or maybe I'm going too far, so please stop me if you have your questions, because I would want to move to the selection. Creative Europe is a fund that helps you to develop a project, and Euroimage is a fund which helps you to produce a project. This is the basic difference. Both, no. Euroimage, the structure Euroimage of they pay fees, and and the other one is paid from the budget of the European Union. I'm not a specialist on the sources of financing of the sources of financing, so I can't maybe tell it properly. So the selection. How do you choose the partner for co-production? That's most important. As a rule, you look for co-producers in industry events, in workshops in which you participate. So I, for example, when I was developing my career, I first went to the workshop which was called IAVI, and among my first partners, I found co-producers in these workshops, and then I went to another workshop which was ACE, and right now I'm planning to go to another workshop, and I feel that I have a lot of knowledge to learn, because the more structures you acquire, the more you find your place in there, because this world changes in a quite regular manner. So this is one of the places in which you can find the partners. In order to establish some partnership, you have to have the possibility to you have to answer yourself, why do you want to find a partner in a given country? Why this country is interesting for you? So an example of my friend from Germany is that, as I expect, the director you work with is a Polish, and she graduated from a German school, so she has some sort of a networking and visibility in Germany due to her structure. And now the ideal partner for you would be to find a co-production partner in Poland who'd want to produce a film or set up their own company and co-produce between themselves, because this is also possible. And people who are in both markets, this is what they do. Entropa is a great example of that, how you can saturate. I mean, they work in Scandinavia, in Germany, and in Spain. How they can get from those markets money for them to produce themselves, because nobody forbids you that. I mean, in looking to find yourself in this is easy. To find a partner, it's quite difficult. So I started out with basing on two basic rules. The first one, finding somebody who's wiser than me, who does have knowledge and does have know-how in the register I'm not knowledgeable in. And this is defined by your own project. So my first project that I did, I really wanted to have myself as a company who has like the taste and finds talent and can do a movie, and then can place the movie in art house festivals. That was my idea for discerning myself, for finding a beginner whom I will see that they are talented, and I know that I will find for them an international premiere in one of the bigger festival platforms of this world. And now, in all this, on all this assumption, I have nothing. I'm a beginner myself. I have no bloody idea how to get there. I only know, I think, I have this impression that I do have a good eye to see if somebody's talented or not, or that somebody wants to tell a good story. And that's all I have. And I have relations with that person, hopefully built, and it defends myself. So I have to find somebody who is not much more experienced than myself. They're still hungry for new talent, but already has in their assumption certain in their portfolio some festival success. So that's how I look for a partner, and these were my two assumptions for looking for a partner. If we get to a talent market in Berlin, which is a very interesting place to present your debut, well, this Berlin is looking for the partners for you. They just put in a catalog, they advertise your tagline, your synopsis, the director statements. All these things are there, and it's being sent all around the industry. The industry reads such a catalog, and they say, okay, this is interesting for me, that is interesting for me. maybe I could co-produce that. Maybe I could add something here. Then you sit at the table, people come to you, you are in a great moment because people want you. Your project is wanted. However, you have to pitch those people, you have to present to those people, you have to sell your energy. So co-production, in my view, is a marriage, which sometimes is a bumpy one. And sometimes you really have to have an argument, and sometimes you have to say something very strong to another person. But still, you have a baby together, and everybody wants this baby to be as good as possible. And when I'm trying to answer the question of today's, which is the topic of this lecture, the opportunities and threats of international co-production, one of the biggest opportunities is increasing the universality of the project. So the fact that I'm from here, from a certain cultural environment, that I watched films which tell a story in a certain structure, is my upside and my downside, because that structure is not really something interesting to people who are in a given country, that they use a different language and have a different past, cultural past. So if finally you find a partner where you feel, you have the impression that they have a good nose, good artistic taste, similar to you, they are the best possibility for you to universalize this project, to impact your creative duo, the scriptwriter and the director, even one person or many persons, to bring this film, to make it more understandable under different geographical latitudes. And this is one of the basic co-production opportunities for us, apart from co-financing. So this financing is which we really care about, because we won't make a film without that. But apart from the fact that this is that the fact we're using a partner for money, but it's less obvious that we're looking a partner for creative cooperation. So that our partner can say that something is too obscure for them, because they would want to they care for this baby, and they would want to enter this cooperating structure. And for me, this is the biggest opportunity. And not always the partner will find the money, and they will not always become your co-producer, but it is quite probable that at the moment when they would want to join this co-production, they will allow you to get this project at a higher level. Of course they will. Of course they will. But it all depends on you. You can assume a certain rule that if the co-producer who engages in the project that for 1 year tries to get the financing, and that they will not get that financing because it's impossible, they can still get the percentage. They can become the executive co-producer, they can get a credit, and the end credit. You can sometimes honor him somehow, let's say, for example, with end credits. I think that money is not everything, and not everything at a certain stage. So you, as young producers, you have to make an assumptions. What is your resistance? What is your support of a husband, of parents? What is your support in your work, and how much you can invest? And only then you can answer if another project in which you operate is worth preparing. I saw that nobody in the history of my life, until I produce a film, will consider me able to produce the film until I produce it. So if I'm not earning any money on this, well, tough luck. Producing a single film is a long-term thing where you can do a lot of stuff in terms of earning money. If you have one movie, so I assumed that I set up Lava Film in 2010,
zdjęciowo powstała w
The
2014.
Intruder was built in 2004, was made in 2014. Until that moment, I was working in Opus Film,
I robiłem
and I was doing IDA, and I was earning money.
I dzięki temu mogłem przetrwać.
Thanks to that, I could survive.
Na danym projekcie w
But
tym etapie nie
at that level, I did not earn any money on that project at that time. But I was so scared out that I will go over the budget that I saved money, and I've managed to pay my own fees. However, I learned about that much later. And Lava, how did it function initially? Because it needed costs, it needed money to support that company. Was it your investment, or we were lucky?
Każda firma, nie wiem jak Krzysiu jak wam mówił, ale każda firma mam wrażenie, która robi w ogóle fabuły, a która robi artystyczne fabuły, to już tym bardziej musi mieć inną.
Every company has to have a different leg of financing, whether it's a commercial, whether it's a commercial production or TV show or anything else that's like producing Ziplocs or matches. You have to need this second leg. So leaving Opus, I didn't want to steal the structure of Opus. I would feel bad about it. So I knew that we don't want to make commercials. No commercials. But because we thought that we are making these co-productions, so that's what we want to specialize in, we started to advertise ourselves as a company which can do service in Poland. And we've managed, by absolute fluke, we've managed to make a series Tango Libre, which was in Venice, and it won Venice, Frederick Fontaine. A fantastic adventure. My first project as a Lava film, and we got markup from all Polish expenses. We had our own fee. We had to buy a printer. We could buy a printer. We could buy certain things, but still, again, for the first 6 years, we were running this company from our couch and from our laptops and our own desks, and wherever we were. We had our first office in 2014. We employed office assistants in 2017, and I already felt that we had some achievements as a company. There's a cycle. Before you get a certain critical mass, and until that time, you need 6-7 years. You do not have really incomes unless you're going to commercials. And I hope that Krzysztof also told you that, because in a commercial project you can really collect within 1 year. You enter the market, you make a markup, you service it for somebody, you get the whole team, and you really have the big money from the outset. You have 10%, maybe 8%, maybe you're a beginning, and you have a markup from the whole of the budget. You know what is the budget. These are the money that you can keep your company afloat for minimum 3 years from one project. Not to think that of course, you're buying Porsche or something else, that we have some incredible office in the center of Warsaw and 7,000 assistants, because you don't need that for anything. So that's this way of thinking. However, at the level the stage I am at, from the sale of licenses, from the number of projects, even if I don't earn a lot of money, I can support my office and my assistant. Don't you have a legal department? Yeah, I'm outsourcing everything. But we have a legal subcontractor. So in a month, she sells me invoices every month. I'm not signing any contract without the knowledge that without the consultation. And how many people did you start with? Four partners in the beginning. Now there are 2 of us, me and Agnieszka. There was Karolina i Halszka. For many reasons, they resigned from this company on the way, but it also helped us a lot. We were able to separate certain things, and we were able to specialize, and it makes no sense to work alone. You will give up if you will work alone. But in four people is too much. Because the structure that we set up, in the setup we created, because if you have Krzysztof, will have a company that is more commercial, then I believe yes, you can have more partners. Because it will support this register. However, in the artistic productions, when this return is like 10,000 a month, you will not support it. And do you share among those two, between these two people? Is somebody more artistic, somebody else is more of an accountant? How do you manage the everyday operations of the business? It works so much like this is that Halszka did the majority of operations, then she left, and Agnieszka, we started from a company in Łódź where we lived after we graduated from school. Agnieszka moved to Warsaw, so perforce it fell on my shoulders. But right now, you know, every year we work in a different way, and right now we have another Agnieszka. I call her our CFO, so our financing and accounting person, and she's been doing that for us. No, she's not a part. She joined later. Well, it's a B2B arrangement. But yes, she's full-time. In your productions, do you have any experience with Israel? Oh yes, I do. How does it look like there? Oh well, it's fantastic. Really. Israel is a country which does not do co-productions. Israel, everybody co-produces with Israel. But the only co-production we've managed to force on Israel was The Demon of Marcin Wrona. Rest in peace. And it was co-produced with Israel, but at that time Israel did not have any official support for minority co-productions. But between Germany and Israel there is a certain way of mutual arrangements. So it's different when you're in Germany. I'm talking from the perspective of Poland, but I'm coming back. I'm in the third point and I have 8 points. We'll have to prolong. Selection. The thing that I will have to tell you is the question of that this try not to be with somebody too experienced so that they don't eat you up. Don't get a partner who's much stronger. There's big disproportion between your power because you might not uphold it, and they might have a company that will have the whole accounting team, the whole legal team, and suddenly you with in every situation will be representing your company, and then there you will be meeting with somebody else every time. And to what extent you create the relation with the co-producer? You will have no relations with their lawyer and with their accountant, so they will eat you. So here you have to be very, very careful. The division was discussed, the percentage was discussed, and now we talked about the legal part. The thing we didn't manage to mention was that the selection of how to come up with co-production of a film with Germany or Sweden or Spain. How do you find it? There are practically 3 tools I can come up with for that. One, with whom am I making that film? So if I make a film with Magnus von Horn, who's half Swedish, half Polish, whichever way you look at it, it's obvious that Sweden is my natural co-production partners. It's organic co-production. He guarantees the element of creative spend on the Swedish part as a director. Of course, it's not so obvious because it's not that they really are agog with expectation to finance him. The second element is the artistic cooperation. So, for example, there is a French DOP which I would love to work. Claire Maton, a great person. She made in The Lady in Fire, a fantastic, extremely talented. And when I have some sort of co-production, I want to work with Claire Maton. So I go to the French guys and say, I have this movie. And they say, no, it's not gonna sell in France. No, it's... And Claire Maton disappears. And that's where I learn. I'm looking at the structures. I'm looking what could be of interest for them. It's one of the questions, issues I take into account. I'm looking for the point of departure in any creative aspect. So an artist, a composer, a scriptwriter, which is point of departure, and the third one is the location. So, for example, Silent Ground, which we produced recently, it was written in Sardinia. But so an Italian producer was key for us. So these are the three places where I can easily show you in the idea of creative combination the base grounds for co-production. But you can also follow the topic itself, or you can follow a certain potential of the movie in terms of sales in a given region. But then you have to have quite a solid research and see which films get distributed there, which topics are attractive for the audience, what reaches the audience there. So if you specialize in the young audience films, it's something very good because it's always possible to attach it to any country because they will dub it anyway. So this co-production of such a title is much easier. If you're making a film about football, then again you have some films, some countries where the distribution will be obvious. If you're doing a Holocaust film, you again have several countries which are obvious. So also the topic also gives you a certain idea about who to co-produce with. I will give you my idea, which is not painful for me, but I will use it as a threat. So I'm not just talking about the fun part, but I will also talk about and opportunities. I will also talk about threats. We know Polish budget realities. We know that a certain part of the work, certain operator, someone's DOP's fee costs X. Abroad, in co-production, you can win or lose with that. So if I have a budget 5 million and it occurs that 1 million is for one creative artist, I think that this is a threat. His fees in that country will be too large. So we get a fantastic DOP from the United States who's in CAA agency. $250,000 would be his money, even if he doesn't do anything serious. It might be a threat to the budget, but I don't care. I do have a rule that as long as this country with which I co-produce is able to cover in 100% from its financing this DOP's fees, the payment for the process which takes place there, then I'm not interested in how this works. What I'm interested in is that from my funding, I will not have to spend money in that region. What does it give me? It allows me to make the budget leaner. If I were to collect that all in Poland, even if something costs 100, 200, 300,000 in Poland, if it's spent elsewhere, I can spend this money on something else. So per force, I have savings, even though at the initial thought it looks like an excess, exceeding of a budget. Out of the money from the peace, 50% you're obliged to spend in Poland as a rule. What did it look like in your case? I don't know if you have that in your points, but this division creative, usually I spend everything I collected in Poland. I spend it in Poland. Unless it's Silent Ground, then I have to spend it abroad, but I still take with me a lot of stuff from Poland. So I'm trying to have a crew and everybody from Poland. I know it's cheaper, and I spend for the only things which I cannot get in Poland. So when we were shooting in Sardinia, Agnieszka took costumes, the makeup and toilet, and everything was taken from Poland. It was a spend that was on our budget, not on their budget, and they got to certain financing, which hotels, which he had to spend their actors, I don't know, set design, because that was the creative element of Italy, cost this and that. and they got into that level, and I already have a decision here. Should I accept that certain amount of budget costs twice as much there, or should I bring it from Poland because it's costless? I will always bring it from Poland because I don't know why I should sort of throw money at their part. So to a certain limit, I allow them to decide what they do. If they demand money from me, then I intervene because I can't afford that, or I don't want to spend that money like this. So there are two big threats which you have to know about co-production cooperation. There are actually three things. One is that it is always a different culture. It's always a different culture. So if I want to have Claire Maton, whom I consider extremely talented, but she might have her own requirements, and like she wants to have wine for a dinner, she wants to have a 5-star hotel, or some other whims, she might not tolerate some behavior, and all that is a part. So when you enter international production, you have to be aware that on the other part there is a different person from a different culture with different experience and requiring other things, and that person, it's not easy for them to adapt to our structure of production. So if we make co-productions in which partners want to shoot films here, do you know how much it costs us to explain that we have two first ID? One is in the office and the other one in the set, and the first ID in the one who's on the set, he doesn't know anything in the schedule, he's only in the execution, and it's just a Polish model which doesn't work anywhere else in the world. But now try to have the first ID who's into the Polish set, you'll be gone. People can't work like that. So it all depends how this combination will be done. Will it require the period of conflicts, the period for adaptation? We are quite complaining person, however you look at it. We're quite a direct nation. We quite often say what we think. We have no problems with swearing. We are more confrontational. Not every country is like that. Not every culture in Europe is like us. I would say that there are less nations like us. Could you give us an example from your experience? Okay, so in Sweden, when I had an impression that during the preparation period, the Swedish crew thought that I'm crazy. My emotionality, the fact that I calm, I shout, I throw things around. I said, no, we're not gonna do it like this. And for them, that was something really outrageous. There are people in Sweden, there's also a rule that you enter emotions. When you enter emotions, you lose face. So you allow yourself to be provoked, and you enter you become emotional, you lose certain you lose face, and people do not practice it. And there are also people who do not want to say no, but that doesn't mean they say yes. They say like, they do like so do we do this? You really have to learn that in the process. You can confront it, you can win with this, you can lose with that. Both rules are applicable. Can you say something about the differentiation between the operating the concrete from being confrontational? It's an interpersonal skill. So this is the question of how can you diplomatically start to speak concrete stuff without attacking with this concrete stuff. I can't define this. I don't know if I have it. Sometimes you will not you have to sort of follow your emotions, because you might become more aggressive whether you like it or not. It's only about your interpersonal skills. Something more, and this is awareness, are different rules of work. The length of the working day, of the shooting day, the type of food you get on the set, how a given department operates. So for example, in Poland, if you have this light the light department brings you the tripod, and the grip brings you the tripod in Belgium, and the light puts the lamp on it. So these like small rules, those nuts and bolts of functioning of our industry in different countries in the execution of this idea are very important. After you have this money, after you have the budget, after you enter this element, you also have to enter this awareness that you have to know these things. If you take anybody from a given country, you have the obligation to tell them we work 12 hours a day with 1 hour of break. Would Claire Maton want to work in such a structure? Wouldn't she want more money from you for this way of working? Is there some obligation? So, for example, in France, if there is no break after 5 hours after the work starts, they can leave the set. In one country it's 45 minutes break, in the other country it's 1 hour break. All those rules are extremely important and very different, and you have to agree to some extent how to enter that. A big threat is the difference in exchange rate, is the FX rate. Let's imagine that you're financing right now a film like the Silent Ground, which is to be shot in Sardinia, and euro jumps from 4.2 to 5 zlotys, and no fund. I mean, there are some very expensive insurance that you can buy. You can get insured from currency loss, but in our reality, you can't afford that. So if you get the amount a year before, then what? Well, yeah, I mean, if you have a financing in a given currency, then you don't care, because you do not have to recalculate it. The problem is when you have to have your own currency, which suddenly collapsed, and you have to spend it in the country where you can't afford 1/10 of you could afford in the plan. And we're financing, and we sign all the contracts 2 years in advance. So that's a big threat, and you have to know that this might not be easy. So that's why what I told you a moment ago, keep as long as they're able to finance what you agreed that should be spent on them. That's okay. If you are supposed to add money to that, you have to be very, very careful. Another thing, and I think that's the most difficult thing, that can function on every market, but in a situation of co-production, it's much more difficult because we do not know the legal reality of a given country, is the bankruptcy. In the selection of the partners, don't look for somebody too advanced on the other side of the table. Also, be sensitive to find out if that person is not in debt in some way. Even though that our institute does not require from us the presentation of the balance sheets of a given company or P&L accounts, but I would advise you strongly to ask your partner for that. Because I practically once, I almost didn't fail because of that. Well, the big disadvantage is that somebody can get on your rights, and if you have badly written co-production contract, then you can enter this contract. How to separate these two things? The legal interpretation is important, but also which law works in which country and how the bankruptcy is being dealt with, because at some point you suddenly can become responsible for the debts of such a partner within the frames of your movie. So it's not that you will be covering everything. However, suddenly this film can suddenly be taken over, all the profits from the film, and nothing will get to you due to the fact that there are debts, or that there is bankruptcy, or there's some assets that are being subjected to the court, and everybody's being blocked, and you cannot make any transfer anymore. So this has to be, You have to be very careful about that. So big companies have already proved that. I mean, the big companies, they always have something to lose, but the small companies can go under the water because of that. The movies that I told you about, that I'm looking for, somebody that already has some sort of success, that somebody. But the worst moment is the one that I had 3 years ago. When you're not a small company anymore, you're not a big company yet, but you have already a lot of big projects, and suddenly you have to take them because they're all interesting. You want to do them, and then it's very easy to stumble, lose control, oversee certain, go over the budget, and you know that we're not operating in several hundred zlotys, but we're operating at the level of several million zlotys, and this can be really, really painful. For talking about obvious things that maybe I address a bit too, that at the moment when we have that partner, we have this co-production structure, this might help us in promotion or in sort of festival setting. So we have 2 people who fight for that because everybody cares for this project. So even my favorite case, which happened to me many years ago, it's my debut in Cannes, The Intruder. It's very funny from my perspective. The situation was in the beginning of December in Argentina. It was Mar del Plata during the festival. The artistic director goes down with a lift in a lift to the breakfast, and he goes down with my co-producer Sofia from Cinema de Facto, and they're from France. They talk, blah blah blah. It's all nice. What do you do now? And she says this title, and then it's really good, and blah blah blah. She tells the story about that, and that 2 minutes pitch in the elevator pitch. They go to the breakfast. They part ways. On the same day, in the evening, after a few drinks, the same Edward Raydrop and my Polish distributor are taking this lift upwards, and the same question is made. So what's fun is done in Poland, and he says exactly the same title. On the same day, on next day, I get the mail from Eduardo's assistant. I heard that you made a nice film. Can you send us the link? We want to see it. I send the link. 5 days later, we are invited to the festival. So these are things which I think it's a total fluke or opportunity. It's a total opportunity. If you enter some co-production, in this space, you have another ambassador of your idea who will get something for you. It is a thing that is very important. And the last element which I was supposed to show you, but the last element which might not be absolutely obvious to you in the moment at which you're in, when you're looking for the project, is the counter project. Or in other words, when you're establishing a co-production which works, which is successful, which has in it the element of trust, because this is what it all bases upon, and this trust is confirmed by the ability of acquiring financing and getting this into production. From the other side, you get a project. It's very important because you don't get many new projects at this stage. You have 1 or 2 projects that you found yourself. And then when you have the structure, then your co-production partner will come and say, no, that's all nice, but you see, this is something else I have, and I wanted to show it to you. And then you can become, as an exchange, a minority co-producer, and you can make another title, and this will also give something to you. We in those arrangements in this community, we operate because we have our own movies in those festivals. We have our minority co-productions in other festivals for the world, which is from the outside. This all is a success because this is my title, this way or another. Whether I'm a producer or co-producer, it doesn't matter who's the delegated, who's the main person, who has a bigger chunk of this cake. A part of the success is always shines on me, and it thanks to me too, because thanks to me this film was created, because I made my bit. I did my bit. Do you have any questions? Not anymore. I have a question. When you were setting up, when you were talking about yourself here, and that I said I think I have a taste, artistic taste. It's a difference. Remember, ego always works both ways. You either feel that you're a spoiled brat, and you will be the spoiled brat, or you will be a bit humble. From my experience, I burnt a lot of relations because I was a spoiled brat. I know, but now that it's better to be humble. And I don't have a golden rule for that, whether it's good, if somebody's talented or not. I only have my own taste and my own intuition. And humility wins you more than overselling yourself. Yes, I wanted to ask you about the second part, because you said that you feel you have a chance to get things to a better festival. Did that mean that you had some relations set up with the festivals or with people? No, I have now, but because it's not that I will that everything what I produce will go to the festival. You have, but the thing is, when you go to the festival, when you send to the festival, you know that something will be watched by the committee. I'm not a part of this people, but in a very simplistic way, the festivals have selection groups, and in the first selection groups, these are students of film schools who get the role to see 1,500 movies and make a certain pre-selection or a short review out of that, and to answer certain questions. And only that goes to selection specialists who select which films are interesting and which are not. And I had the situation, this is incredible, that I was in a film festival with a friend whom I know, and she was a selectioner of a festival I know. And we presented the work in progress of a movie, which I sent to her a month earlier. Well, not me, but the main producer. But I didn't tell her that I sent it. And she comes to us to say, "Wow, that's a great project. I want to see the whole of it." And the day before, we got a rejection from her festival, and I had like a bit of a mindfuck, and she did not watch it. She said she's very sorry for how it happened, but the situation was a bit bizarre, and but a year later we were at that festival. So this is how it works. So if you're a no-name, it's difficult to find a way for the committee for the selection group to watch your film, so that you make sure that it's watched by a selection group, not pre-selection group. If you have somebody among those people, you can send them an email. I've sent my film, and they might watch your film then, and it doesn't mean that you will get to the festival, because this selection is very, very strong. But at least you know that you will be answered, and that person will say, "Okay, I appreciate, but this year I don't think it's gonna work with our festival," and that's it. And nobody. If you're Ruben Moslund, then you have certain links to the festival, because people are struggling to show your film, or falling over themselves to your film. But until you build such persona, you do not have such assumptions, and that person might also make a wrong film, bad film, and that might not work. We have to end. Okay, the last thing. I will show one thing. I will show just one thing. How much you talk, how many, not many things work as much as the image does. So at this stage, when you're looking for partners, it's good to show them something. We're making teasers which do not cost us much. This is sweat. Well, she's talking about herself. She's talking who she is. We go to the element, what it's all about, how we will tell this story. The video that she made for this whole community, she deletes it and she records it once again. So the key of this moment is for her to enter her role again. So you're playing this truth and truth of the internet. But for this you have to have an actress, DOP, etc., etc. And something that I will show you, because this movie, you've seen that film. Sorry that it's shorter, so I don't want to stress you out. I'll show you the teaser and how did we make a co-production market in Italy, where our producer and director pitched that project, which we saw. This was the material that we were presented, and based on that, we decided that it's something for us, and we would like to be the co-producer. Okay. We try to put our project as a benchmark to ours, to show some sort of a cooperation which we had a chance to observe. This requires certain creativity in selection of the material. It's certain erudition that people watch, that they watch this or that title. And that's it. And that always refreshes the pitching, and I wanted to show it to make a break from that talk, and unfortunately I forgot about it totally. So I recommend to you that you do such materials, especially at the stage when you want to sell that idea, because it will always give you more. The image will always tell more than 1,000 words. We know that, especially in a place we're at now, and the workshop that is being organized here, and that works. Thank you.